Well, hello. There is an episode 2, and this is it. I'm astonished that after episode 1, we've got over 100 subscribers, followers, disciples, whatever they're called. So that's fantastic. You'll notice it's a new year, so I've got a new top on. So you can gradually watch this getting covered in mastic and paint over the next few months. Whilst we're on the subject of tops and mastic and glue, shout out to my friend Gary, who managed to drop me in it with regards to glue. Put on a newish top, came up here, thought, oh, I'll just glue that so and so over there. Managed to get glue on the sleeve. He noticed it, cleaned it all off, had the same top on a couple of days later. He says in front of my wife, oh, you managed to get that glue out of your new top then, good. So thanks very much for that, Gary. Whilst on the subject of shout-outs, some people say that social media and what have you is a bit of a, shall we say, not a force for good. I would disagree. As a result of the first video, a very old friend of mine, he's not very old, but a friend from a long time ago got in touch with me. We got chatting. It turns out that he also has an interest in model railways. His interest is pretty much, what shall we say, restricted to the electronic side of things. He's not interested in running numbers and eras and all that sort of thing, a bit like myself really in that respect, in that this is a complete eclectic mix here. Anyway, we were talking about the possibility of automating the sidings down here, so train shuttle up and down and the points change, and he said I might have a solution for that. We left it there, and then through the post arrived this bit of kit, which does exactly as he suggested. So Fat Bloke, as he likes to be called, or Link, thank you very much. Here's a self-portrait of Link. Some of you out there might recognise that. That's so thanks very much for that. Right, so over Christmas, Father Christmas brought me a new bit of kit. This is my track cleaning wagon from Gauge Master Pico. Well, I don't quite know how you pronounce that. We're going to try that out later, and we'll have a look at that on the layout. The other thing we're going to do in this episode is go round the bend. Now, there was an area, you may recall, where it curves round, and I was going to landscape and do something with that. I haven't quite finished it, but I've pretty much completed it enough to where I feel I can show it to the world. So that's what we'll be doing in this particular episode. So Mottington Parkway goes round the bend. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. So here's a general view of the area we're looking at. I've moved the socket down underneath to get that out of the way. As you can see here, sure it's not compliant with all regulations, but anyway it's moved. And we're now going to paint the back seam bit, and that's the start of the little project to take us round the corner here. So, one coat of paint. Come back in about 4 days when it's dry and give it another coat. And let me just show you the other mistake I made, which if we come over here, you'll be able to see. So, having decided to paint some of the brickwork in the absence of a back seam, I then have obviously got to deal with all that mess of cable over there in the corner and paint the bit that I can't actually reach. So, as I said in the beginning, complete lack of planning, classic mistakes made. Make sure you get access to all parts of your layout. Needs a wee bit of tidying up, but this is the last bit I've finished. Again, going back to the first video, huge mistake. The gradient on the hill was way too steep. And what I didn't realise, when you're trying to ask locos to pull loads of wagons up a hill where the back end of the train is round the bend, as it were, they really just don't like it. So what I did was lifted all this really from this section we're looking at here to make that gradient far more gradual and curving round. Relayed the curve, put third radius curve in there, and it makes that climb a lot easier. And virtually all of my locos can now get up there with pretty much a full load. So that's a bit of a success, again from an initial mistake. So turning around, this is the area we've been sort of working on, and there it is now, with all loaded down with stuff, and we'll come back to that tomorrow or the next day, whenever. So this is Sculptor mould. I've heard an awful lot about it and seen people using it, never used it myself. It's a mixture of plaster of Paris and shredded paper by the look of it, and made in the good old US of A. There seems to have been lately, or back end of 2023, a bit of a shortage in the UK, but this stuff eventually arrived. I'm going to use it on the hill. I can't show you doing that because I managed to run out of battery or had some other camera malfunction, but anyway, we'll try it out and we'll see how we go. So it's now 48 hours later, believe it or not. What have we discovered? Well, we discovered that some of the sculptor mould has gone off, the thinner bits I put down here, but somewhere where it's gone on a bit more thickly, in winter, in an unheated garage, with a little bit of damp, and it's rain outside, it doesn't go off that quickly. So, what I was planning to do this morning, I'll probably have to wait. So, in the meantime, let's think about what's going on with this wall, or this bit here. Probably done it a little bit too straight and level. Really needs to have a bit more lean on it. But anyway, we are where we are, and yeah. So maybe some sort of retaining structure needs to go in there. I'll give that some thought and come back to you. So sculptor mould, dry enough to be a quick sand, quick hoover, coat of brown paint from Hobbycraft, pound a pot, lovely stuff, and that's where we are at the moment. So last night I thought we'd do something with this area here, rather than it to be flat and have buildings, because it doesn't really go anywhere. So perhaps the hill used to flow down like that before they made this cutting. So I stuck down some Celotex. So what this is made out of, Celotex covered with the plaster bandagey stuff, and then the sculptor mould that we talked about. So I'm going to do the same here. So I stuck it down last night, so that's all nice and firm. Now I'm going to carve it into a bit more of a hill-like shape, and yeah, just make a bit more sort of general terrain here. I quite like this stuff because you can normally get it for nothing. This came out of my neighbour's extension, well, not out of his extension, but it was left over by the builders. So its major benefits are it's easy to carve, easy to work with. It's generally, if you get a small bit, free. Disadvantage is it makes an unholy mess, as you're about to witness. So let's move this building out of the way. So just using it's just a carving knife that I repurposed from the kitchen. yes, I made this little bit behind. I'm not quite sure about that, but well, for the moment that can be the backdrop here, and then we'll maybe put some walls or some sort of arches or something along here and here to create the walls of this cutting, and I think a brick wall along here and along here, so where it backs up to the mill stroke factory thing which we've just moved. So that's the carving done. Now get the plaster cloth out. I've been filled in some of these little gaps just to smooth it off. As you've probably noticed, I'm not the tidiest. However, top tip, get one of these handheld dustbustery things. Absolute godsend for sorting stuff out. So I forget who it was who suggested it, but yeah, good stuff. So next stage I'm going to cover this with plaster cloth. Can be quite expensive stuff. I've got 3, 4, 5 rolls, can't remember, bulk pack from a company called Hobby Stuff, which I found to be very reasonable. So let's whack a bit of that on. I've found it's quite a good idea to cut it into quite small pieces and then sort of produce some sort of patchwork and generally layer it up that way. Others will have different methods, no doubt, but anyway, here we go. See why my top gets so dirty now. Okay, I'll go away and cut some more strips and come back when it's all covered up. So, half an hour beginning to end pretty much. That's why I like this stuff, nice and quick all the way around. Just leave it to dry, which this time of year will probably take, oh, I don't know, 24 hours, something like that, until we can whack some sculptor mould on it, and then we can continue. Might have some trees or something up here. That would be would work quite well. Maybe, I don't know. It's we'll find out. As I say, never plan anything. Well, I don't anyway. Just one thing though, it does make a bit of a mess with the old plaster cloth, and if you hoover it up, it will gum your hoover up, but hey ho, you can always wash it out. So let's go away and leave that to dry, and we'll come back in probably tomorrow. So we can see my trial trees in position. I think we will have some trees up there, but let's take it out of the way for the time being. Also remove the homemade building stroke mill. Sure. Let's see what's going on. Now, I've noticed there's a bit of a problem here, because somebody once said you've got to make these things look, and he's quite right, look like they were there before the railway is, rather than they were plonked in after the railway, if that makes sense. So this hill really needs to be more like that. In other words, this bit here, I don't know if you probably can't see it terribly well, but that there is a wee bit too flat. So if I can find a bit of something, there we go. So we need to have a bit more of a slope coming down here, in which case that doesn't need a lot, just so it looks like there's a continuation, and this bit here is being cut out. So without any further messing around, I thought I'd finish this bit, but clearly I haven't. I'll cut a bit more foam, stick it on, bandage it, and then we can go on after that. Good, okay. Okay, so how are we doing with our graduation? Yeah, that's sort of more like it, isn't it? Okay, so I'll crack on and then come back to you when we've stuck it all down a bit, yeah? Okay. So hopefully you can see now I've got a bit of a rough thing. I'm also covered in plaster and no more nails and other stuff. So I'll let that dry for a bit, have a cup of tea, go walk the dog, and we'll come back and cover it in plaster cloth and then carry on. Yeah, good. Okay, in the spirit of not planning and experimentation, I've got one of these rubber rock moulds from Woodland Scenics that you're supposed to fill with fine plaster. I'm just going to wonder what happens if you whack some leftover sculptor mould in here and press it down. I wonder if it produces anything like a reasonable effect. Who knows? So I'll give it a go and I'll let you know what happens, whether they turn out, if anything turns out, but it's a complete waste of time, in a little while. Okay, so welcome to my equally chaotic but significantly warmer workbench in the spare room. Whilst that sculptor mould is going off, I thought I might try and make a little wall to go along the inside of the cutting. So I've got some of this textured plastic, I guess it is, and a little bit of plastic card. So what I thought I'd do is get some old off cuts of, I think this is 3mm cardboard, put them together to make it 6. The idea is that will form some sort of buttress like that we can then cover with said plastic like that to form a stone effect, and then put the stone in between times, in between the buttresses, which I think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 probably do it, and then we can paint it, and I'm going to show you how not to do the weathering. So there we go. I've also brought the experimental rocks inside because, as I say, that sculptor mould will take about a week to dry out in the garage, so we need to go find something else to do in the meantime. So there we go, let's have a go then, see what this turns out like. As I said, I'm using thin plastic card and the thin embossed sheet. The buttresses are being provided by 3mm mounting board that's been cut into strips. There's a bit of fiddling and faffing about to get it absolutely lined up, but after a little while it's progressing nicely. Okay, so it's now trying to, I've trimmed some little bits off for the side of the abutments. This is this thin plastic stuff which I've got from my local model shop, which is called The Model Shop. It's in Northampton. It's been there years and it's a great place. £3.40 a sheet, pretty flimsy, but that's good because it's easy to cut. So I'm going to wax these bits on the side here and then call it a day for today, because I've got other stuff to do, and then we'll come back to it and fill in the gaps and put some capping on it and paint it. Okay. Okay, so that'll do for today. We'll, if it's really cold again tomorrow, we'll crack on in here, or you never know, the sculpting mould may be dry. Let's see. Anyway, so you can see I'm sticking the plastic card onto here to make buttresses, etc. The nice thing about this is if your cutting and measuring is, shall we say, less than accurate, you can easily, I've found anyway, given that my cutting and measuring is less than accurate, being able to get a reasonable fit by taking a bit of sandpaper to it is quite an advantage. Also helps if you get it the right way round, which was that way. There you go. So I'm going to just a touch more so it sits in that gap. I know this wall won't really be seen, but it'd be nice to get it as neat as possible. Okay, so I stuck the other bits with the card glue, just using where it's plastic to plastic, bit of with the old polystyrene cement, the smell of which reminds me of Airfix kits of years ago when I was a kid. So there. Done it again, like so. Okay. So it's starting to come together. So what I should have done was marked the coping stones before I attached these bits of card. However, true bodger fashion, we got round it. So fine, hopefully the indentations there will be sufficient to show once it's been painted. If it hasn't, well, it's not the end of the world, because it's going to be tucked behind the hill, sort of like that. So you'll only actually see this top bit in reality. So next stage is to get some primer on it, but generally speaking I'm quite happy with that. Wouldn't win any prizes in a modelling competition, but it'll do the job, I think. So, ladies and gents, here we have the finished wall. We should go around the corner of the hill that's being built outside. Well, not outside, but in the garage, you know what I mean. Assuming the sculptor mould eventually dries. It's been about a week now, so I guess we ought to go and have a little look. So I haven't filmed myself doing this bit because I'm really just making it up as I go along, which is often the best way. What happened to the sculpture mould, it's easy for me to say, sculpture mould rocks that I made, I hear you cry? Well, I've stuck them on to bits of the layout, here, here and here. Gave them a coat of grey primer. What I would say is, don't bother, just if you have some leftover stuff, just chuck it away. The rocks produced by the fine plaster are much better and easier to work with, but there you go, waste not, want not. Just move the camera, sorry for the shakes. You can see what we've got going on down here. There. And there. The edges are all a bit proud, but we can deal with those in due course. The big grey area behind the reinforcing bit here needs some more thought, but I'll come back to that in due course. It has to be said, I've always struggled with static grass. What an admission to make. I thought it was just me, but I met a guy at the Great Electric Train Show a couple of years ago who was having exactly the same troubles. And we spoke to a very nice man from, I think it was Worldwide Scenics or War Game Scenics or something like that. And he sold me this layering spray and said this was the answer to my troubles. So I put a base down of, I think it was 2mm, something like that. And I'm now going to try and stick, and we've also put some fine turf on top of that. And I'm now going to stick some more stuff of longer nature, spray it, and give it a go and see what happens live on camera. Okay, so this is a live demonstration of my incompetence with a static grass gun. So, give it a spray. Switch the thing on, hold the probe, and here we go. And there we go, just produce a matted finish. It doesn't sort of seem to want to stand up, but there we go. Anyway, let's let that dry, take the masking tape away and see what's what. So as you can see, all a bit flat and not quite what I wanted. So if there's anybody out there who can help me out of my static grass misery, please shout. Although that is standing up a little better, I guess. We've got a bit of definition there. So I guess let's just see how that dries, and we'll come back to it and think about some trees, which I probably should have thought about before I started this, but anyway, hey ho. So, 3 trees, one on the left, an absolute beauty from Primo or Primo models, which I picked up at Great Electric Train Show. I've bought these in the past and they're absolutely superb. The fir tree is one I've had from the model shop in Northampton for years, and the other one is a rather feeble effort that I made myself out of some sea foam and a bit of florist tape and what have you. Not sure about the homemade one, whether that will go in there, but again, I think I'll leave it there and see if I like the look of that, and then we can make a decision and fix them in place if that's what we decide to go with. A few bushes need to go in, I think, other bits and bobs, and then we move on to, pardon me, this bit over here, which is finishing that wall off, which has fallen over. All this sort of area around here, fix the wall, do the ballasting. In fact, there's hardly anything else to do at all.
So after much shaking, sticking down of tufts and other general landscaping, this is the stage we're at now. I think the tree that's in place is going to move again, but this is where we're at partway through this final process.
And so there's a view of the completed corner. Maybe while I move the camera, this little bit around here, it's going to be some sort of yard. I haven't quite decided how we're going to do that yet. But yeah, there'll be something in there. Zooming in nice and slow, you can see bits and pieces I've done around this corner. And there goes a train. So backing onto the mill, still a few areas to tidy up, like down here for example, but yeah, certainly getting there, and that represents a bit of progress. Moving over, another view down this side. This seller text here I'm going to disguise with some sort of retaining wall, whether it's a repeat of this one here or something different, I don't know. However, we'll do that, and there we go, the train runs under the tunnel. Got to finish off the tunnel portals. There's still a bit of a mess, as you can see. Some edging and other stuff to do. I've ballasted it to a point. I'm scared stiff of ballasting points, having gummed up several points in the past. I really don't want to do that again, so I've sort of fought shy of that, but I'll do that in private. I didn't think the world needed another ballasting video, so I just cracked on with that anyway. Added various bits of grass in, as I say, and there we are.
Jumping rather abruptly out of that, at the beginning I said we'd try out the track cleaning wagon. Well, here it is, and it follows on the trial.
So there's the track cleaner trundling around, probably the dirtiest bit of tracks, the oldest bit of track, the original oval, and it took a little while to get going, but it seems to be travelling okay. And I guess it's doing its job. Stop it in a sec after another circuit and have a look at the bottom of the pad and see if there's any evidence of cleaning going on. So, not sure whether you can see, but there does appear to be some evidence that it's been scraping along the track, so I guess it's doing something, and the loco seems to be running a bit smoother on the bit that it's cleaned. So, good news. Thank you, Santa. As I say, I think the fact that it ducks in and out of sight is quite a nice feature, and I'm pretty pleased with that. So there you go. Mottington Parkway goes round the bend. So that'll be it for this month. I'll try and do another one in February, and hopefully we'll get this yard area, which you can see over here, a little more complete, and maybe some other bits and pieces, who knows. Need some more trees, so we'll have a bit of a tree making extravaganza, I think. And also I've got a couple of locos that need fixing, so I'm going to see if I can do that on camera without swearing. This will not be Oh dear, something seems to have gone awry. Anyway, never mind. On that note, cheerio, thanks for watching. See you in episode 3.